All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Unicorn Connector Show, where we talk about relationships, revenues, and referrals. And today I'm excited because we have a special guest, Trevor Van Woerden, on the show, who I've connected with in all sorts of different ways. We originally met through the Social Saturday Squad and have continued just connecting and supporting each other in all sorts of different ways. Trevor is the founder of the Hotness Unleasher Studios, which hosts the 344 show and the Hotness Unleasher show. It's very interesting the way that he supports other people and has built such an incredible community on LinkedIn. So I'm excited to have him here, and yeah, we'll get into it. So Trevor, thank you so much for being here, and welcome
Man,
to the show.
I'm thrilled to be here. This is great. It's awesome to be on your show with you, man.
Yeah, well, thank you. Seriously, really appreciate you coming on. And
Absolutely.
I know you just barely finished up another one of your episodes, the 344 show, right?
Yeah.
And who did you have on as the guest today?
Rob Fenstermaker.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Cool.
Kingdom Builder. He's a coach. He's down in Florida. He works with men, and he's just getting the word out. So it was really great to get to know him, and did a great job. He's got a good offer. So yeah, and unfortunately, LinkedIn glitched out, of course, but it's over on YouTube, and we're gonna make I'll make a YouTube short out of the thing, and we'll have some fun with it. It's a great short show.
Awesome. Cool. So, Trevor, where are you located?
I am located up in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, Bellingham, Washington, to be specific, which is often confused with Bellevue, Washington, but we're not that. We're actually about 90 miles north of Seattle, about 20 miles south of the Canadian border.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I remember when we first connected, I was like, yeah, you're right by my sister. You're not right by my sister. She's in Seattle area, which is kind of close to Bellevue, but not where you're at. So
No,
yeah.
no, I'm up in my it's its own place. We are not a suburb. We're our own little burg.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, so I know that, honestly, when I first connected with you, I was really kind of impressed by everything you were doing. You had a podcast at that time. What was it? What did you call the show?
Rev Optimist.
Rev Optimist. That's what I thought.
Yep. Yep.
And then just through everything on LinkedIn, just the way that you have showcased so many people and really just shown all the different people on LinkedIn, I have been thoroughly impressed by just how you do that, and I just think it's really creative. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate it. It's like you've brought to light some really incredible people, and I've never seen anybody just support people in such a way that you do. So I just think that it's really cool.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, you started with the Hotness Unleasher show, but I know that wasn't originally like how you didn't start it that way as the Hotness Unleasher show, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about the story? How'd you?
Okay. Yeah, that's a fun story to tell, and you were part of it. I mean, truly, you were. Gosh, where to begin? There's so much advice out on LinkedIn. I mean, one of the cardinal pieces of advice, if there's any, it's just start, right? I mean, you hear that everywhere you go, right? This post after post, just start, right? And there's a few others, but let's just focus on that one. And so I'm seeing live shows, and I'm like, hey, that sounds cool. and so Stephen Ing and I, we're gonna have a virtual coffee. And I look at his calendar, and his calendar only has 8 a.m. on Saturday morning available. And this was August, and I'm like, at the time, I was so down in the weeds of Social Saturday. I was just hardcore on that, just network. And I said, dude, let's go live. Let's do it. Let's talk about Social Saturday. That'll be our subject. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then meanwhile, he's like freaking out. So he says, he calls Julie Morey, and he says, Julie, I can't do it. I can't do it myself. I can't. so we get Julie to come in, and Julie and I do a quick test, and she's all good, and she's drinking wine and stuff. That was pretty good. That's like the pre. That's what we do at this coffee chat, right? And that's really all it is. The three of us live Social Saturday morning. Little did I know that was the first episode. And that was really fun, and a whole bunch of people showed up. And I called you I remember this specifically. I said, dude, how do I go live? What do I do? And he said, well, you don't just push a button. You got to get a platform. You got to get it all hooked up. and I'm like, oh no, what? And so I trained myself. I forced myself to learn how to hook up Zoom. I don't recommend that punishment on anybody because Zoom is a complete and utter disaster when it comes to trying to run a live show.
Yeah.
God, oh, it's the worst. And it's just totally non-intuitive. It breaks. You have no visibility into your comments. Nothing. I mean, it's just rotten stuff.
Well, and that's why I said you gotta figure it out beforehand, because I was like 10 minutes before my first show, and I'm like, where's the button to go live on LinkedIn? And it just doesn't exist. You can do it on Facebook, right? But there's no button. You got to like integrate it and everything. And I about ripped my hair out trying to figure it out with Zoom. And
you got to have all these codes and this back stuff, and you got to match it and hook it over here in some arcane deep menu on the 5th page down the hole. So yes. Okay. So that all happened, right? So then the following week, I'm like, Daniel, come on, you and Allison McMaster can come on. And this is like the one weekend out of the entire year, or actually the last 5 years that she's home, because she travels everywhere all the time. Right. So you guys come in, we have a great time. We show up, people come, right? People are hanging out and they're like digging this conversation about Social Saturday. Okay. That's pretty rad. Then let's do it again. So I invite Red Stavestrom and Mandy O'Neill, and Mandy, to her credit, because she is the ultimate marketer, she's like, we gotta have a plan, right? We're gonna do this and this and this and da, da, da. You know, she's got this whole thing kind of figured out. Red comes up with a cover page, and he calls it Hotness with the Pros Saturday. Okay, that's awesome. Let's do that. And because I was already using this sort of Hotness Unleasher thing that had kind of just been manufactured out of thin air, and that he had contributed to, so that was the 3rd episode. And then as we began to progress, how did it go? So it became the Hotness Unleasher Show because I felt a need to like define it. And I think it was probably by the 5th or 6th, probably the 5th episode by then that we named it, the Hotness Unleasher Show. And I think it was partially because I got some feedback from Natalie Rasmussen. And there's Mandy. She's the best. She's like this. She's just a force of awesomeness out here. So
I still gotta have a one-on-one with her.
Man, you do. You gotta get to know Mandy. But Natalie Rasmussen, I kept trying to get her to come on and be a guest, and she couldn't accept that she was a pro, right? Like it was Hotness with the Pros, right? She just wasn't gonna go there. I'm not a pro, she's very humble and I mean, here I am walking around Chief Hotness Unleasher.
Well, I mean, but at this point you have earned it. And I know that sometimes you put on things, you're like, oh, that's not me, but it is though, like you created this show and now that's,
you make it right.
You just embody it now.
You just gotta, and so anyway, that was the genesis of the show. So it committed to the naming of it. We did a lot of experimentation, figured out how to run a show, basically, like how do you, all this stuff that you got to think about and deal with, right? Like that the show itself is an hour and relatively speaking, not that hard for that hour. Now, afterward, I was totally exhausted. I just had to lay down, for hours just to try to recover, some bit of energy. But yeah, I was totally wiped out. And I think it was partially because the coordination load was so heavy for me, though, just the way I had it set up, that I didn't manage that well and didn't know how to, I just didn't have the energy to do it in a different way during the season. Right. And so I remember driving home, I don't know, from Seattle or something with one of my kids. And I'm like, you know what? I can set an end date for this. I can stop. Oh, and what happens if I stop? Oh, now all of a sudden it's like a show, right? It's like an actual show. Like shows don't go forever. Like they have a season and they end, and you have to wait for the next season, and all the actors and the producers and the staff and whoever else gets a little break, and they get to rethink and optimize and integrate new ideas and stuff. And so I did that. So we did this. We ran it for another month after that realization, and ended on November 26th. And it was super fun. Jammed in like 35 people. You were there, and
such a blast.
That was fun. That was on Zoom, right?
That was
but
that, which Zoom has its pros and its cons. Shout out for being able to handle that many people.
It can, and that is its purpose, right? It's and that's it. That's like the end of it. Like you can do more than 8 or 9 on screen at a time. So good. Do that. That's where it, like, if you need that, use Zoom. If you don't, then forget it. But so anyway, the where we go. So that was by far the most well-trafficked episode. Like,
well,
not even close.
So talk about it, right? So we're talking about the show, but we're really not talking about what the show is, right? Which I think is the coolest part. I mean, it embodies the what you've created is just so creative, and it embodies who you're showcasing as itself. Like, it's doing what you are talking about, right?
Okay. So when we
probably describe it better than that.
All right, we'll hit it. So what it became in an intentional way, right? So basically well, actually it evolved. It wasn't intentional. It just sort of became it. When we pay attention to other people or their work in an intentional way, we unleash hotness, right? So it's this thing is based on, the Dale Carnegie truth that the sweetest sound that anybody can hear is the sound of our own name, right? Like, people, we need status, we crave it. It's part of being a human. We want to be recognized, and the Hotness Unleasher Show was an exercise in doing that. And so essentially the way it would work is I'd have guests on, and each guest would take a turn announcing a Hotness Unleasher, right? So a person who had been positively influential in their lives recently or at some point, who had a LinkedIn profile, and we would talk about them, right? We would say, here's why Mandy O'Neill is so great, and here's why she has been, like, I would be happy to announce her as a Hotness Unleasher because right? And I'd bring up her profile, and everybody in the comments would freak out and clap and carry on, and it was so much fun. And then early on, there was like a reflection part. This was actually interesting. There was I started to look at the comments, right? And I had this, so we would do a round of Unleashers, and then we would do like this reflection on the week before, and then we do another round of Unleashers, and then we do like, what are we going to look at in the end? And during those reflection times, comments were just, nothing, just no, just dead. And I'm like, we can't have that. We need comments. We need comments going. We want the fire. Right? We want people to be excited and pumped. So I just said, screw that. We dumped all this reflection nonsense and just said, we are going all in on Unleashers. So we just started rolling it, right? And then with the last episode, basically the idea was, okay, let's bring everybody in who'd been on the show, right? Or maybe had been announced as an Unleasher, just kind of opened it up to anybody who had had an experience with it. And 35 people showed up simultaneously, 8:00 on November 26th. It was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And like arguably the worst possible time, but nonetheless, everybody came in and then just flew through like literally a couple hundred people that they called out. And in retrospect, it was too many. It was too many people. We missed. It was really, really hard to capture all of them. If you weren't there, you might not have heard your name. It was hard to tag. We didn't really give. I didn't think enough time for each person to really explain why this was, but the show nonetheless, with all those people It was very high energy. It was super fun. Everybody was super happy to be there. It was a holiday weekend in the US. And so with season 2 now, I'm trying to merge the like the intentional, naming with the slides and kind of control that, and to like be like, how do we explain like why this person is, but without sort of my color commentary, right? So we're going to take my color commentary out, and we're going to have 8 guests on the show. So it'll be a canvas with 9 people. So I'll be there and running it, but you're not going to hear, I'm not going to be announcing my own Hotness Unleashers. I'm really just going to give it to the guests to do that. So, functionally, if you're a guest, like that's my crew right there that week. Okay. So, so we'll go in a round robin. So we'll functionally announce 32 people on the show on Saturday, the 11th. That's the plan.
All right.
I'm excited about it. Yeah, it should be fun.
Cool. So the new Hotness Unleasher show, you're going to go round robin, like you said, between 8 people, 4 people each. They're each going to unleash the hotness that they see in the world. Okay.
Yep.
All right. I like that format. Except for I also like you on the show. Like, we like to hear your smooth Trevor voice.
Well, I appreciate that, but one of the things I did learn from the finale is the host has a real job. Like I remember at the very beginning of the finale, I thought that I could sort of let the guests kind of manage their own transitions. And at about like guest 2, I'm like, no, you people cannot do this. You failed. So I had to take over, right? I literally had to jump in and say, okay, this is how it's going to go. Now you go, now you go, now you go. Like, and a show needs that. Right. And I'm perfectly happy to be a guest. I mean, great. But I also need a strong host, right? I need somebody who's like, okay, we're done. We're going to wrap this up. This is what we're going to end now. And I'm in charge. Right. And I think that sometimes when you have co-hosted shows, they suffer a little bit because you don't see that, there's ambiguity over who's in charge. And I think from an audience perspective, particularly as we're saying, oh, we're going to set this up now, we're going to go to the next thing, this is next on our agenda, and we're going to end, like those transitions need to be managed clearly with decisiveness and make it happen. So that's why I'm going to focus on being the host for the next round of Hotness Unleasher shows, and instead of weekly, they're going to be monthly, and that's a little more manageable for me because I'm doing this other show too. So
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. So just once a month then.
Just once a month. Yep. And
still
so
be
bigger, more sort of, it'll be a full hour, and we can let it leak over a little bit, but I like to respect people's time and other shows, right? Because the other shows are out there, and I want, I don't want to take up all day. And like, Melissa Houston has her show that she's doing on Saturday mornings as well. And to respect that she's built up an audience, and so she's going to work around, we've kind of, she's volunteered, she's offered, she's such a sweetheart to kind of move her time, out of the way of the Hotness Unleasher show when it's happening. But I don't know. I don't want to like dig into other people's time. So we'll go from 8 to 9 and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It's very considerate of you. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you mentioned your other show. We kind of also briefly touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense that you're planning on just doing that once a month. And then you have the 344 show that you're doing daily. Is that correct?
Yep. Every weekday. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yep. So tell us a little bit more about that. How'd you come up with it?
Well, so the 344 is came from when I analyzed all of the visit data, all the visit and time data from the Hotness Unleasher Show. And so I took all the episodes, added up all the viewers, I added up all the minutes consumed, I did the math, and it was the average amount of time was 3 minutes and 44 seconds.
Okay.
And okay, that's cool. And I think that's actually probably more a reflection of those who stayed, and those who didn't bailed. And So in any case, doesn't matter. That was the hour. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. What are we going to do with that? Because I knew I wanted to do something else. I wanted to have some other kind of live thing going. And I didn't quite know. Right? I had sort of this vague idea of like doing a product demo show or something, and have it down. I thought, okay, what can I do? Can it be a super short form? Because I felt like all these shows are an hour long, and sometimes an hour is a lot to commit to, right? You can't. It's hard to hang in there. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I want it to be short, and so I thought, I know, I'll make a 3-minute and 44-minute show live. So I tried that. It was a disaster. It was so epically bad. I didn't release it I made a post about it. I took all the covers that from I can't help pick up this pen, but anyway, I made all these covers, and I hated it. Like, just literally wanted to light it on fire. I mean, like, it was awful.
Why? Did it just feel too rushed or something?
Oh yeah, it was super rushed. I couldn't get any kind of message through in that amount of time that made any sense. You couldn't get the buffering to work right, because that takes up a lot of time, and because I feel like you commit, right? You commit to a framework for how a show is going to go, and you got to stick with that, right? Like this is our identity. And so I thought, okay, that sucks. Now what? And I was pretty bummed out actually for about a week. And I just I didn't know, because I knew I wanted it. And then I thought, wait a minute, what if I just started at 3:44 p.m. and I do it as a 16-minute show, as sort of like a preempt to some of the other shows that were coming out on the hour. So I wouldn't upset anybody, because most of the people who were on an hour-long show probably bailed out, right? By 3:44, right? So they started at 3, they're gone, right? They quit. So I could pick up any stragglers who might still be around. And so I said, okay, let's do that. And it was still I was really conceiving of it as like, I was going to mostly do like SaaS product demos, right? And because I love to collect software, it's kind of my geeky hobby. Mm-hmm. And I'd gotten some good feedback on some other demos that I had done way like last summer, and people were kind of were into them, and they were like 10 minutes long, and it seemed like the time was about right. But then I don't know, I just sat with it, and I was like, that's dumb. I don't want to do I don't want to do that. How do we I need a guest, right? Because you can't, because doing a monologue, doing a solo is a solo. It's hard, right? It's like you're just talking to your camera, which is weird. And there are people who can really do that. And I'm getting better. I do practice it sometimes, but
and you did that with Rev Optimist, didn't you?
I did. And Rev Optimist was an epic dumpster fire too. I mean, the product itself was okay. I think it was strictly audio, but holy crap, it took me forever to make an episode. I mean, it took like an entire day, literally, to make one episode that ended up being like 9 minutes long. And I'm like, no, that cannot be. I just can't do that. So I still love that name. I still want to do something with that brand. I think it's so, that's, because whole B2B RevOps and that wordplay, I don't know. It's I like it, but it's not ready yet. I don't know what it's going to be. So you just like, it's there. I'll get to it. But the 344 then basically said, oh, guess what? I know what I can do. I can have a guest, and a guest can present their own stuff. And guess what? I don't need to prepare that in the same way. I don't need to edit that in the same way. I can just run it, and they can come on and they can tell me what they're selling. And so I took that out to test it, with a few posts, and I got great feedback. Like, people were just all over it. And the idea basically is that, we don't really have permission to sell our stuff on LinkedIn from our personal profiles, yet our business pages are complete ghost town. So, the business page, you can, like, that's why it exists. It exists to represent your offer, your product, right? That's the point of it. Nobody cares. They don't go to business pages. LinkedIn doesn't give them any traffic. Okay, so you have your profile page, but then you get in trouble and you lose engagement and you get kind of, pushed off to the side if all you do is sell your stuff. But guess what? Some of us are really hungry and we need to sell our stuff. So I'm like, how do I solve this problem? Well, the 344 is a way to solve that problem. Now, it's not getting any traffic to speak of, right? I'm not getting very many people to show up to it. So, I'm fooling around with that, but I have a full calendar until March 2nd. So the entire month of February I have guests every day, and that's exciting. So I have a lot of time, I have a lot of runway to get it dialed in. I feel like the show itself has its structure now, right? Kind of know how to run it, as David Ketchen was saying, like what the beats are, like where I'm going to be at a certain time and where I need to be by a certain time. And today's episode was pretty relaxed. I felt like it came off pretty good. And we'll see how it comes together. Now, obviously, if I can't get traffic to it organically or otherwise, then it doesn't have much life. It can't live without traffic, but but I still got a few tricks up my sleeve. Like I could change the 344 to not 3:44 p.m. PST. I could change it to 3:44 p.m. GMT. Mm-hmm. Right? 3:44 p.m. GMT is actually the sweetest spot ever. Right? Because it's 7:44 a.m. PST, which is 10:44 a.m. Eastern time. And 3:44 p.m. GMT is right at the kind of toward the end of the workday for Europe, and then that runs all the way north south, all the way down through Nigeria. So you pick that up, and then it's not too late for Eastern Europe, and it's certainly not. And you can even dip into India a little bit. So I think that's a better time. So that probably the next thing I try is to switch the time. But I want to give this specific time a chance to see if it's good. And frankly, I can always bring somebody back too, right? It's like I'm doing it every day. If somebody got shortchanged because the show didn't have an audience and then it gets an audience, I can say, well, come on, let's do it again, right?
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that works.
Yeah, no harm in that.
Nope.
Okay, cool. And so you're doing it. Are you doing it every single day or just during the weekdays?
Just during the week. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's I like my weekends too, just like anybody else.
Yeah. Right. Well, committing to something like this can be demanding and a lot. It's a lot more work than I think people give it credit for.
It is. Although there are some benefits that you don't really see in terms of time management and stuff, because it when you have a show, even though like my impression counts are stupid now. They're abysmal. They're 5% of what they were in the summer. I mean, literally, I've taken a 95% hit in impressions. But I don't really care that much. I mean, I kind of care. I kind of do, but it's like I feel okay about it because I'm making a really key connection with somebody, right, in real time, and then I always have something to talk about, right? I always that show sets the content flow, right? I mean, you know this about your show, right? The Unicorn, it's like it gives you a mission. You're trying to get a guest and you want to get it set up, and you've got these things and then you put it on YouTube and you got to deal with that, and then you got to put a short together maybe or whatever it is. All of these component parts then begin to set the flow of what your content production scheme looks like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in ways I didn't expect that. I put the show together thinking, okay, this is going to be great, right? Not realizing that, that means there needs to be something for it on this day and this day and this day, and it has to go out, which is another thing. And next thing you know, your full week is all about the show, right?
Yeah,
and it's like, wow, okay, time to do more, I guess.
Did I sign up for that? Really? Yeah. And that's partially why I moved the 344 out to my business page in terms of like the actual publication of it, because I didn't want it to be the entirety of the content that I, put out. I can sort of speak to it in that way, right? I can say, oh, well, over here, we're doing this thing. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, I can talk about this other thing.
Yeah. And your page, the Hotness Unleasher studio page, has already picked up pretty good traction, it seems like.
I look at others and I'm like, I don't know how they get tens of thousands of people to follow their pages, because I got a couple hundred and I'm like, yeah, I know that, there's another thing I should say. I'm of an opinion that every single LinkedIn user should start a business page.
Okay.
And I've been meaning to actually get out and talk about this since last fall. I made an announcement on the Unicorn Connectors channel, DM chat. But I really firmly believe this, because A, we don't know what LinkedIn's going to do with them, right? B, they're another channel, like a sub channel, and a way to organize your content. So you could keep a diary over there that could be very private and very personal and very whatever, and nobody's ever going to see it, because LinkedIn isn't promoting it or anything. You have to physically, it won't be too private, but it's a way to keep track, like better control over themes, over topics, right? You could do sub pages within a business page. So I think we get hung up on calling them business pages, but they're pretty cool in terms of what you can do and how you can create even like different, how you name them, and then how those names can then show up as, active kind of like avatars for you almost. And like that's not really being talked about as like a sub personal page. Anyway, I got to talk more about that. Like, I really want to kind of explore this idea that everybody should have their own business page. Think of it differently. Think of it as like an avatar for your personal profile, as a way to get more content out if you really want to create more. And then, it ultimately, we don't know, like, if LinkedIn changes the game, right, which they have been shown to do, right? And they decide, oh, guess what? We want to do some more action with these business pages, and you don't have one. And that's it. Okay. So sorry, this was a very long answer to a short question. Probably not even a question. I just started spouting off. But when you get those first followers to your business page, that is some serious dopamine. I got to tell you right now, like that dopamine hit is intense. so if you need a little dopamine, you really want to know who your friends are, just fire up a business page and get some followers, because when they show up, you're just like, oh yes, like it feels just like you're actually resonating with somebody, right? That it's making a difference, and yeah, that it's different than a connection. And it's I for the most part, like, I knew every single person.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of people's way of saying, all right, fine, I'll look at everything you have to show me, right?
Yeah.
Like, whether the algorithm shows it to me or not, I'm up for it,
Yeah.
I support your company. That's what they're saying.
It feels really good. It just does. And it was so fun to see, like, Lauren Sermon, she's got her LWL now, Lessons with Lauren, and to do that for her, right? To go out and just, I'm going to like your stuff. I'm going to like your page, and go for it. Right. Yeah. And follow it and get the notifications and stuff. And because I know how good that feels.
Yeah, I do too. So I think my Facebook has something like 15 business pages.
Okay.
And I've created multiple on LinkedIn as well. So when you announced your Hotness Unleasher show, I think I was the second, and I was like, oh, because I wanted to be the first. I like to be the first and stuff. So I hopped on that, and immediately, like, anytime, So connection requests, I'm pretty free about accepting them. Newsletters, I am very choosy. I do not just accept everybody's invitation. Pages, if it's somebody I know and I like, I accept it 100% of the time. Okay. If I have declined a page invite and you're wondering what the crap happened there, then send me a new one. But, because it's just, one extra person, it really adds to the credibility,
Yeah. And
I like that you're saying you recommend everybody do it, even from a personal brand perspective.
Yeah.
Which you've done just a great job at your personal brand with your little blue flames and, the whole Hotness Unleasher thing. And, it's beautiful about having a brand that has an emoji is that you can just use it all over the place. And it becomes your emoji, right? Like we've got all these little flames in all the tickers that are rolling because it's catchy, right? And it makes it easy. You can say your whole company with one emoji.
Right. Totally. It's easy to use. And the thing too is like, so this is, and we talked about this before we went live, but just in case anybody's, still with us, it's these flames behind me are printed. They're actually real. And I mean, I can go back here and I can touch them, right? And you see them shake. See, that's a real thing. And I went to a sign shop. I got them printed, and I love them. They're great, and I can flip them around. So I have the Hotness, and so that's the 344 brand. Flip them around, and they're it's a turquoise background with red flames. Okay. And so that's a different look, right? And depending on what color LED I shine on them, I can change the brand again, right? So I can turn these blue if I want to by shining a different color on them. And then the red ones are really cool because I can make them look like a super deep campfire kind of thing, right? So that's pretty fun. Nice as well. So there's a lot of flexibility, but it's this sort of flame brand. It's like you wouldn't think it's as flexible as it is, but it's pretty sweet, really.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think you've done a great job with it.
Thanks.
Like I just know it's your brand and it's very noticeable. And I've seen some people kind of mimic it in a way, but it never looks as good. You're like super creative with all the things that you do on LinkedIn. It's very impressive. I gotta say,
I appreciate that, man. It's I think a lot of it wasn't always that way, right? I mean, my creation journey started really in October of 2019, and I spent better part of 2.5 years really making content that nobody cared about, and really being very vanilla. And I met Danny Wolf and Carrie Gard, and listened to this podcast. And Danny, she's a cybersecurity marketer, and she just was like, "Look, you got a voice, you got to use it." And she wasn't talking to me specifically. She was just, and that resonated with me so much. It was like, oh, you're right. I have these ideas. I just got to let them rip, and put them out there. And I love it. So I'm trying to like do stuff that is that maybe seems a little bit risky or a little bit goofy or a little bit weird. I did this Wally White Paper dances on Fridays GIF. Okay. So stupid. But yeah, so there's a Happy Friday GIF of this person who's dressed up like a ballerina and with a wig and everything, and has a very serious, stern look on their face, and just doing a dance. And then it's like Happy Friday, and it's like this arms crossed thing, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, can I pull something like that off? So I have this character that I made for my it's been a couple of years. I haven't really pulled him out yet very much lately, but his name's Wally Whitepaper, and he is he's like the personification of B2B content, right? As a white paper is a form that's pretty popular. And so he's got a beard and this wig, this beard wig thing. And so he did a dance on Friday, and I made it into a GIF. And it didn't really go over very well. Like, some people sort of looked at it, and nobody really like went and really like dove into it. Nobody asked me about it. Nobody like really. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that was a little too far. That's why I pushed that. I just went a little bit too far.
No, keep going.
No, that's okay. That's it. This shit happens. You just kind of have to say, well, sometimes you blow it. And I don't. Okay. So what?
Well, so this is what I was going to say. That's one of the things that I just love the most about you. And you picked it even when you were sending your info over, that you like to let go and have a good time and be yourself. And you've shown that easily on LinkedIn, that, you're willing to try new things. You're not afraid of what people think of you, because you're supporting people and you're putting things out there that you want to put out there. And you're being yourself, right? You're being authentic. And I just think that's super amazing. And, it kind of makes me think of, the whole term, how people will talk about, there's, the LinkedIn 2.0, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I know you've mentioned on posts
Yep.
or something, in the past. I know you definitely believe that we're into LinkedIn 2.0 and maybe even moving into another version. But how would you describe LinkedIn 2.0 to me? What would you say that it's become?
I think that 2.0 is actually starting to wind down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that 2.0 was really, really peaked probably last fall, really there. The Hotness Unleasher Show was really definitely a part of it. At least my experience with it. I know that LinkedIn is massive, and I would just have this very, very, very tiny sliver. But my impression is that a lot of people realized that they could make connections personally. And those who realized that did, and have made a lot of friends, like really legitimate, vital, valuable friendships. I have, right? Like first name basis with tons of people. I can't continue to do that. Right? Like, I can sort of incrementally add people here and there as room kind of evolves, but not like I can't just like continue to expand in that way. And so, in my opinion, LinkedIn 2.0 marked the shift from LinkedIn being a boring, the most boring place on earth, full of turgid blowhards, and basically telling you how it was, and you could put your resume there and never come back, right? Maybe apply for jobs or something. That was 1.0. Now 2.0 was, oh, guess what? There's really cool people here who are really super nice and I can make friends with. And we did that. Awesome. And now 3.0 or 2.5 or 2.1 or whatever you want to call it, I think is in the wings. I think it's coming, because now we're coming back to saying, okay, we need to make some money, right? We're all professionals here, and some way, shape, or form, I can't spend all this time justifying for the long game. At some point I gotta like make some money. And I'm seeing people talk about that, like Chris Bogue. He's awesome. He's a total like video sales creator guy, and he's there, right? Jesse Lezak with the Whiskey Wednesday, she's there. She's trying to get sponsorships for that show. And I'm the 344 is really about helping people to sell their stuff. So it's like we're seeing evidence of that kind of come up organically, and it wasn't like a manufacturer. Nobody came from on high and said, oh, it's time to do this. No, it was like, holy crap, it's a new year, I gotta make some dough here, guys. That's I can't just somehow or other, I gotta make it happen. So yeah, that's partially why I'm all down on these business pages. Like, I think if you don't know how to run a business page, you don't know what a business page is, you don't know what they avail, how they're different, what you can do with them, how to buy a LinkedIn ad if you wanted to, or even don't even know they exist. Well, get on it.
Yeah. Right. And so do you think that people who, let's say, when you talk about the whole LinkedIn 2.0, I totally understand what you're saying. It was, grow, connect, build, support each other, right? A lot of fun, right? And what you're saying sounds like now a lot of people are kind of having the aha of, okay, now I got to leverage that, right? Like I did all this work and grew my community, but, I either pivot and go somewhere else or pivot and figure out how to sell. So you're kind of recommending that people set up a business page so you can continue being yourself and posting natural organic content, right? Without just making ads out there all the time, right? But you have your business page to support the projects that you're working on, right?
Yeah. And it is the rarest of rare people who can really really pull off a personal page with their business content, right? They're out there, like Emery Moralt, she's really good. And Jay Alik, right? Yasmin, he's a stud. He does a good job. Taz, he's good at it too. It's some of them are doing more kind of LinkedIn-y type content, and so that makes sense. And then like recruiters can kind of do it, so they get lots of traffic. But for those of us who aren't Meta, and I use that in the not as the company, but Meta to LinkedIn, writing on LinkedIn about LinkedIn. It's harder, right? We have to be more sort of creative, and I'm seeing that now. Like, so probably going to get called out and pilloried, but Lavender, right? So Lavender is super famous right now because they went and they hired a bunch of creators. So, and some people with some very significant followings, right? And they're super pumped. Like they're just like their hype machine is on fire right now. So if you're involved in those kind of B2B marketing communities, you're seeing it. And good on them. Like, hey, awesome. But you got all these creators who were making, pretty organic, kind of balanced, sort of interesting, more personal take. Now all they do is talk about Lavender. Okay, I got the message. Thank you. Right? I don't really want to just hear about this new company you went to over and over and over. I want to hear, I want to hear your story. How did you become a creator? How did you get how did you even get this job? How did they notice you? What did you do? Like, those are cool stories. I don't really, I can go find out about their product,
anyway,
later. Right? You're right. Like, hey, I don't need that all the time. So there is a risk in that. I mean, it was cool at first, but that's me really going out on a limb because these some of these folks have got followings and engaged followings at that are really, I mean, really something special, right? Very rare, and my hat's off to them. Like, but what I want to know is how to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to convert sales without feeling salesy, right? Maybe that's one of the benefits of hopping on the 344 show, right?
That's it. It's a safe space to sell your solution on LinkedIn.
Full circle. Right? I love
it.
That's
it. That's just trying to make it so people can can have permission to come talk about. Okay, you want to talk about Lavender? Great. Let's get every single one of you creators. We'll line you up. You come on the show, talk about it, pitch it. Why is it good? Yeah. Why do I have to have it? How is my life going to be better? What do I got? What's much it going to cost? Show it in action. Awesome. Yes. And then give me a post about your dog.
Yeah. At least alternate it, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and maybe they are, to be fair, maybe they are, but I'm only seeing their stuff. That's about their product. So, I mean, and 90% of it is on me. I got to say too, I'll take responsibility for it because I could just be me being a little jealous that there's all these people who are like brand ambassadors and advisors and whatever, and they're getting hired to consult and all that. And, my phone's not ringing. So, there's that reality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I mean, but there's the 80-20 rule, right? You don't want to be selling 100% of the time. And maybe you're only seeing the portion where they are selling, right?
It could be. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's hard
and
to
who
say
knows
exactly.
if it's even working for them, right?
Well, yeah, it's very early stage, so we'll see. Yeah, but but to Lavender's credit, they are doing a free job seeker. So if you're a job seeker, you can get a free subscription to their service to write better, emails for your application. That's awesome.
That's cool,
right? There's nothing. I mean, how can you say anything other than that's totally rad? Like that's the greatest. I mean, do that. Okay, I have like nothing but respect for their approach.
Yeah. I mean, trying new things and different approaches I think is admirable for sure.
Totally.
So I'm curious. I've really enjoyed the way that you've experimented and been so public about the way you've experimented with LinkedIn and all sorts of different things. Mm-hmm. For people that are new, because I definitely recommend, especially if you're in the B2B space, if you have a business, if you're working with clients, whatever, I always recommend people leverage LinkedIn, because a lot of people don't realize that it has all this potential outside of just finding a job. So I'm curious, if somebody were to go log into LinkedIn for the first time, what would be like a couple of tips that you might get for things that you would say to, really make the most out of it?
I love that question. It's happened a couple times. Amara Murphy comes to mind. She came into my network. I think she had 9 followers or something when I first met her. And she's just been nothing but awesome. Right. So, makes really kind of crazy content. She's totally like into Halloween and stuff, and has really good ideas that are sort of mind bendery a little bit, and stretches things out, and doesn't talk about just normals. Even like her personal posts are not like pithy missives, right? She's really got stuff going on. So do that, right? Like be brave about what is really on your mind, and don't feel like you have to copy this sort of short, style that does work for some. I mean, unless that's your legitimate gig. I mean, that's who you are, then fine. But you would have been on LinkedIn if that was your thing already. Like you're not just showing up, right? So who are you? Why are you not here yet? Right. And so the second one is my son. So he's 20. He's getting a computer science degree. He is on LinkedIn because I have literally drug him to make it happen. And I am trying my hardest to get him to take it seriously, right? And he hasn't. There isn't really a tribe for him here, right? So I think if I was gonna really say like, okay, why do you want to be here? He is seeing his experiences as a job seeker, right? He's trying to find an internship, and what can he do and who can he network with? And he's just not seeing his community here. So I guess if I was gonna say, okay, why did it take you so long? Figure that out. What are you trying to accomplish? And then go find some people who are talking about those things. So do the searches, look for the content, look for the hashtags, be creative, and chances are you're going to find, a group of people who are willing to engage and who are willing to and then just start to comment. Start with that. Right?
Yeah.
You don't need to post right away. You don't need to do selfies. You don't need to, do anything. Crystal Ortega, she doesn't post, but she's super famous. Like even Nick Chirigian, right? He doesn't post.
Yeah.
Really, he used to but he kind of toned that down. Like, okay, awesome. But they're both like totally involved. Like, exactly who they are, right? They're here and they're active. And so that's a perfectly valid way to be known and to have a voice and add value to this community. So I guess I would just say like, go out and find people that are talking about things that you're into, and then talk to them, and then not overpressure it.
Right. And try to add value, right?
Yeah, contribute. Give a
them
dissenting opinion, and see what happens. I mean, LinkedIn is very much sort of a uplifting, right? We don't tend to really disagree much or not. That's really mellowed out. I don't see a lot of trolls out here anymore.
Yeah.
And but I think it's okay to not necessarily 100% agree, right? You can add some color and add a little flavor to the discussion if need be.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had some very interesting conversations just through the comments, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how connected you can feel with somebody through comments. I mean, you and I went back and forth many times on different posts before we ever met face to face. And
there was one we got into about goal setting. That was fun.
Yeah.
We didn't really agree on that. We didn't agree. No. So yeah, that's all good. I appreciated that. I appreciated your perspective.
Yeah.
And I had literally just got done reading Atomic Habits, which was basically the basis of what I was trying to say, that it's about process and so, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it was fun, right? It was a good dialogue. I appreciate it. Great deal.
Right. Well, and it, had me thinking about my process a little bit, and, I thought it was definitely good information. And that's the thing, when you come at it with an open mind and you're willing to listen to other people's perspectives, and you don't get argumentative, right? That's kind of a key part to not arguing, is don't get argumentative. Yeah. It's really not a scary place. I mean, anybody who's thinking about it and wants to build their brand and community on LinkedIn, I definitely recommend it. It's not scary. You have people like me and Trevor to connect with, where we're all about letting go, having a good time, and being yourself, amongst other things. But
I mean, if I see and you make cool comments on my stuff, I'm going to reply back. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Right. Even if you make dumb comments, I'm still going to reply back.
Yeah. No, you do a great job. Like, I've always just been impressed, and you're consistent. The fact that you have a daily show, the 344 show, that's awesome. And so well, let's get wrapping up here. Trevor, was there anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything you'd like to leave the audience with today? How can we connect with you?
Well, I'm out there on LinkedIn, man. I'm easy to find. Just shoot me an email. My email's there, right? It's on this. Here we go. Trevor JVW, right? That's me on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm all over the place there. If we're overlapping at all, connect with me. I'll accept it. I did say, let's see, yesterday or the day before, I think it was yesterday, I said, if you're thinking of making a podcast, a live show, or some other kind of, if you're thinking about that, do it.
Yeah.
That's my advice to anybody who's listening. Like, make it. Just even if it's total crap, right? Like, I literally didn't get these awesome flames until like a week ago, right? And I literally didn't have my awesome light that makes them turn colors until today, because the two that I had previously were busted, but I still made the shows, right? Yeah. And it was super fun. And I make it, and then you'll find your own path to make it the way that gets you excited. And like Rob, Fenster Maker, he was, one of his lessons is like, hey, we need to figure out how to live our life in such a way that there isn't this work and life and non-work, right? That it's all just, you can't tell when you're working and when you're not. And that's really what I'm trying to do, right? Like, yeah, there's certain things I got to do to make money, and I do them, but they're all merged for me. And so most of the time I'm pretty happy, because I like just doing what I like to do.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, can't argue with that. Definitely.
Not too much, at least. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Trevor, for being here. If you guys want to connect with Trevor, that's Trevor Van Woerden on LinkedIn. He's Trevor JVW, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you'll find him with all the blue flames and blue background, and just they're unleashing hotness on people. So
there you go, man.
Thank
all
you
right,
so
thanks.
much.
You bet.
Appreciate
you
it.
Bet. Absolutely.
Have a good one, everybody.